and how to avoid them in 2024. And also, I have invited a guest today, but I will introduce him just in a while, because I can see we also have a lot of new faces today. So we have enabled the Q&A part of the session. So you will be more than welcome just to type in your name, where you're from, and also the Q&A will be used to ask any questions throughout the session. We will have a Q&A at the end where we will address a lot of the questions, but please just put them in, and then we will head back to them at the end of the session today. We will have approximately 10 or 15 minutes to answer all your questions, so there will be loads of time for that as well. Just for all the new faces joining, this is the Nordic SaaS HubSpot User Group. This user group is non-commercial, so it's community-led, and it is an official HubSpot group. And the main goal for this group is, of course, to learn from proven cases within inbound, within SaaS, but also in terms of HubSpot, and help you support your growth journey on HubSpot as well. And it is also to meet fellow inbounders, to connect, and also to share SaaS-specific challenges and aspirations. As for me, I'm Lotte. I'm the co-founder and SaaS lead here at Helium B2B. I have been the leader of this HubSpot user group for 2 years now. So we have done 8 sessions the last 2 years with a lot of exciting guests, but also very in-depth session on HubSpot in terms of lead scoring, stuff like that. I have 8 years experience working with HubSpot on also inbound strategy for B2B SaaS companies. And I also former been a head of marketing in a SaaS company as well. And then today we're joined by Tobias Binau, all the way from Sri Lanka. And I know he is very warm right now, whereas everyone sitting in Denmark just woke up to a lot of snow. So that's already exciting. But Tobias, maybe you will just introduce yourself, and then we can get going.
Definitely. Hey, everybody. I'm Tobias. Been working with sales since high school, so to say, and in various roles, both enterprise selling and big corporations and small corporations, and selling SaaS. At some point, I figured out that, or I identified that sales is probably the least processed department in most companies. We don't have a lot of rules and structures to follow. So for the past year, a little more than a year, I've helped various early stage SaaS companies to develop their first initial sales processes for them to execute at and hopefully scale at. So that's what I do today, and that's what I've been doing my entire professional career.
Amazing. And today we're going to discuss a lot about sales pitfalls, but also how to avoid them in 2024. And we're going to discuss a lot of different topics. So first of all, we're going to discuss a bit about the sales process in B2B SaaS. We're going to talk a bit about the sales cycle. The sales cycle has... the length has grown a lot in 2023, so we're going to touch upon how to actually work with the new way of selling, also, and how that's going to look like in 2024. We're going to deep dive a bit into some sales techniques. We're going to talk about sales strategy, and then we're going to round up talking about what to expect in 2024 and what both you and I predict, and what we will be having, look very close at in 2024 with our clients. And then we're gonna end the session with a Q&A. So just for the ones that joined a bit later, there is a Q&A. You can type in all your questions. There is also a chat. We will be looking into both of them to answer your questions at the end. We will have approximately 10 or 15 minutes to go through all your questions. So please just put them in, and you're more than welcome to put in the chat where you're from, what you do on a day-to-day basis, just to get the community going as well. So if we start discussing a bit about the sales process, we put in a lot of common mistakes. So what I'm very curious to hear, Tobias, and what you meet in your day-to-day work is what are the most like common mistakes you see in terms of running a healthy sales process and actually closing some deals. If we look at SaaS companies, both early stage but also more mature SaaS companies as well. What are the common mistakes here?
One common mistake and that could be early stage companies, but it can just as well be more mature SaaS companies, is that there's actually no like common ground on what the sales process looks like. Like there's of course some deal stages, probably within HubSpot, they're called different things. But if you are speaking to people throughout the revenue organization, you will see different answers to what each deal stage mean. You will see different answers to which decision criteria is, what there is, what the qualification is, and so on. But the biggest one I see is actually that most are not aware of their next steps in like an in-depth way. So many have a process like discovery, demo, some kind of offer phase or something like that. And that's pretty clear, but especially after the demo phase, a lot of sales just disappears or decline or when it goes silent. And it's because people don't know what exact activity they should propose as the next step and how that activity has value to the actual buyer. So if you are proposing an activity who doesn't have perceived value to the buyer, then it'll think, okay, this activity will only be for Lotte's own sake, so I will withdraw, and then the deal will be in a state where the selling part of this interaction lacks control. And missing out on control is the overall issue that many SaaS companies has.
Yeah, I think also one of the common things we see, especially working with our clients, is most often that you lead with the demo, right? So if you start in your sales process, you think that, it's most common to see that a lot of SaaS companies, they lead with the demo instead of actually, looking into what are the pain points before then building the demo to suit for the pain points. Is that also something that you see a lot?
Yeah, a lot of salespeople lead with solutions to problems that they think they have already revealed, but they haven't got to the root cause of those problems, and they haven't got to the root cause of what a solution should look like to those problems. It's a common mistake when you're talking sales skills as such. As soon as you hear a problem, you bring forward a solution. So to manage that, of course, there's some sales training and some coaching and so on of the actual sales reps. But it also depends on your common framework of how you are conducting demos or how you're conducting discovery meetings and so on. So if there's no common ground on how an activity should look like, then you will see like a lot of different results when various reps are conducting demos. So even yourself are conducting a demo, because one day you do it in one way, and the second day you're doing it in another way, and then you will get unreliable data and unreliable expectations and bad forecasting, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. So what are your recommendations to setting a sort of structure here? I'm also curious about the way to actually break down these barriers for buying, because one thing is, leading with a great discovery or doing a great demo that is actually tailored, to the specific business needs of the buyer. But I'm very curious to hear your recommendations in terms of, it's building a framework that lasts and where you actually get the right data, but also this part about being very good at breaking down the barriers here, especially when we look into the sales process.
Yeah, and especially now where the golden age of SaaS selling is kind of over with. Buyers are in another mental state. So I work with 3 stages of SaaS selling. Like, we need to create some interest. We need to get these people that we want to sell to interested in talking to us. That's where you guys come in, very good at creating demand, capturing demand. Then we come into a stage where we like talk with them. We are co-creating solutions, or maybe we're just telling them about a solution to a problem that they have told us about. And that's all good enough, because in that stage, buyers are sometimes eager to share, and they're in this kind of mental state where I can really see a solution. This sounds really, really cool. But then they get into the last stage, which is taking action. And we all know, like, we have all of these sorts of dreams. That could be professional, that could be privately. But whenever we have to take action, fear starts to cripple in on us. Fear of making the wrong decision, fear of losing out on something else, fear of looking stupid, all of these things. And that crippling fear, it is a seller's responsibility to limit that fear as much as they possibly can. And there are various ways to do it, various tactics to utilize them. But if you don't, you won't have any control of the fear that is within those decision maker, champion, or the entire organization who's about to make a decision. That could be a transition to HubSpot, which could be quite a cumbersome process. It can go very, very wrong if you don't cooperate with the right people. So of course, people will be fearful of making the wrong decisions. Maybe it's easier just to stay at the old CRM system at the end of the day, because while there's a long-term risk, the short-term risk is very small.
Yeah. So what is your own favorite tactic when you need to break down the barriers and, sell your own services, especially as a consultant?
Well, for me, I sell small to sell big. We can only upsell if we sold something in the first place. So I see a lot of SaaS companies also doing paid POCs right now and so on, trial periods, giving more of the product away for an actual purchase, making the contract the contract later on in the buying cycle, well into actually some onboarding cycle. And that is a risk to the SaaS company, of course, because the risk goes somewhere else. But it also make those SaaS companies very, very. They have to take ownership of the process of making these people successful with the product they're selling. So myself, if I'm doing a collaboration, I'm never going into a collaboration without doing a very small service for them at first, which is basically analysis. They have to pay for that analysis, because that shows that they're actually willing to spend. But that analysis I'm actually capable of helping them, and they can already see after that analysis what already noticed they have of problems and how to help them. So I sell small to sell big. That is one thing you can do.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a great takeaway. And also, as you said, as a SaaS company, and we're going to touch upon that later, but, giving more away from free to actually get the foot in, and then upsell from there, especially when thinking about that the sales cycle has really, grown longer. So let's wrap up the part of the sales process and let's jump into the sales cycle. Because the average SaaS sales cycle increased 24% from 60 to 75 days between early 2022 and 23. And if we look at enterprise sales, this cycle has increased 36%. So how do we actually adapt to this in 2024? I think is a very interesting topic. So we also work with a lot of SaaS companies. And, when we started Helion in 2021, where we have like an early launch, it was, in the prime time, it was easy to raise money. There was, it was really like the great days for the SaaS industry. And we can also really, feel that the sales cycle is way longer. It takes more time. It takes especially even more nurture. So how do you like discuss this with your clients as well? And how do you think that we should adapt to this in 2024, both from, early stage or mature part of the SaaS industry, but also when looking at enterprise sales, like 36% is a lot.
Mm, mm. Yeah, and there's two paths that discussion can take. One is like unit economics and how do you manage your financials and so on, and that is very, very important because there can be some severe consequences by that. But I'm more interested in what can we do about it. How can we handle this, and how can we avoid it in the first place? And the simple answer is that we just have to be better. We like as revenue people, as salespeople, we just have to be better. One of the reasons why this is happening is like the crippling fear, as I talked about before, which also makes these deals have more and more internal stakeholders who have to give a nod on a deal. Maybe the deals have to go up to a higher stage, some kind of management level, VP level, C level, and so on. So when we're looking into how many people you actually have to sell into, that have increased, and by enabling these companies to actually make decisions, that is also a part of the sales process. Then we can actually make this sales cycles decrease, but we can also make them progress quicker. Because what's usually happening is that we put the control away from us, make the buyer control, and the buyer is not comfortable controlling. We're thinking that we're doing them a favor by controlling a purchase, but they don't know how to purchase internally. They don't know how to pitch internally. They don't know the decision processes. Like if we go into medic, like people say, yeah, what is the decision process? But the buyer don't even know the decision process. So you have to be the Sherlock Holmes to investigate those decision processes and map out how the buyer journey should be. Yeah, and then enable them to go through that buyer journey.
We see that a lot as well also actually, like the board and the board members being part of the decision now, because, it's also more tough to raise money in this market, especially as a SaaS company. So I think what you're saying is also when you're selling, more be a champion and help, make it an easier choice to buy the software, and help the people that you're selling to actually convince their stakeholders as well. So I would also say what we can see is that there is even more people as part of the decision making when actually buying software as well, but also helping them, because I agree 100% when you say that the buyers are not really comfortable, leading the whole sales process here. So I think a lot of the times we also talk about this more like no bullshit policy. So actually being able to talk about things up front, talk about the pricing, talk about everything related to onboarding, what is the process, and being very honest about what the sales process look like, instead of just showcasing a demo of the software and then crossing our fingers that they will buy.
Yeah, we have to have implementation plans. We have to have value of each use case that you're actually solving. You have to also not only solve a use case, you have to investigate the benefits of solving that use case, which is not like, okay, they saved some time. It's what can they spend that time doing instead. It's business cases, it's all sorts of stuff. And what happens a lot is that people say, if I was to sell something to you, I would convince you and you would think this is nice, but then you would have to go to Rege and to Emil and all of your other colleagues, and you wouldn't stand a chance because you're not used to selling my services. No. So how should you be able to convince them if I haven't enabled you to actually have a chance to do that?
Yeah. So what are like the key tactics to help enable this decision making? What do you propose, and how do you work with this with your clients as well?
Well, there's a lot of tactics that can be put into place. the first tack always upon progression. Make things progress internally. Always have like not mutual action plans as these big Excel sheets, but always have some deliverables with your champion. Have co-creation, so they take responsibility of the process, so they take ownership. The no bullshit policy, as you do, like, don't be afraid to ask difficult questions. Don't be afraid to ask the questions where there's a risk of getting a no or an answer that you don't like. I recently wrote like 17 tips on how you could decrease the sales cycle length. I'm happy to share that with the participants. But there's all sorts of things that you can put in motion who helps this progress. Another thing is to like really deeply investigate the strategic narratives of the future. If you can't tie your initiative to some strategic narrative that the management or the board or the C-levels have, then nothing's going to happen. So you're the one tying all these things together. So consultative sales is on a rise, and it has to be. So that's also what I mean when I say that these salespeople has to be better. They have to be coached better and more, and that's what's gonna enable them to actually do this.
Yeah, but I think that's a very good key takeaway to have here, that if the sales cycle has increased, like you said in the start, we need to be better at selling, right? So with the leads we have, we need to up our conversion rates, because if we want to hit our main goal or our revenue goal, we need to be better at selling, because it takes a way longer time now. And I think we're also going to touch upon it a bit later. But this whole thing about building pipeline, we have a lot of discussions with our clients, especially the SaaS clients, when we look at building pipeline, because when the sales cycle has increased so much, we also need to be very good at building the pipeline and maybe giving a bit more away for free to make sure that we have a volume that makes us hit our revenue goal at the end. Otherwise we will be very, very busy the last half of the year trying to hit those revenue goals. So looking into how can we actually now start predicting our pipeline or at least our leads, and especially the leads that we're actually in a sales dialogue with for Q1, Q2, and then really, always think about how much more do we need to, put in the pipeline to make sure that we can hit these revenue goals, taking this longer sales cycle into account. It's a whole other, it's a new way of doing the math now, because we need to take this into consideration as well.
Yeah, but you will still run into another problem, which is like, okay, the sales cycle gets longer. Let's say it was 4 months before, now it's 6 months. Each rep can handle 50 deals at a time. So when it's 4 months, they can handle 150 deals throughout a year. Now they can only handle 100 because the sales cycle is so much longer. So when we fill up the pipe, these AEs will be more and more stretched thin, which will maybe lower the quality if you don't have like a really solid sales process with probably not too many hard touches and you do not enable them. So they will be stretched thin, and the quality of selling will be lower. Then the sales cycle will increase once again. The win rates will probably drop. So it's just like these sales cycle increases. They're so dangerous because they can have so much impact on other metrics as well. Because we try to fix it, but trying to fix that also makes us have consequences elsewhere in the revenue organization.
Yeah. Okay, very great input. Let's wrap this one up and then let's jump into the sales techniques, because I think this makes sense to talk about now when thinking about the longer sales cycles, right? So when we look into the sales technique and actually, making sure that our conversion rates go up, we also see some, common mistakes here, and some of them we already touch upon. But if you what are like the top 3 recommendations you have in terms of sales technique? We already discussed a bit about, getting the right framework in place, training your business development reps So can you just maybe, name your top three in terms of really ensuring that the sales technique is good when selling SaaS products?
Hmm. I think like this is gonna be very, very classic sales consultant leadership something, but we need to be better at asking questions. Like I wrote poor discovery, but we need to be better at asking questions. It's not just in the beginning to reveal some pain and then come up with solutions and then think they're stupid when they're not making a decision without understanding why. We really need to be better at asking questions, and those questions can even be scripted. I haven't seen a single SaaS company that I work with who had scripted questions beforehand, and you can design them into situational questions, problem questions. If you're doing spin selling, if you're doing other sales, if you use gap selling, you can structurize them into that. So like just being better at asking questions. And if you have scripted them beforehand, you will get better. And at some point, you won't need those scripted questions.
Yeah, and in terms of HubSpot, you can build it into a playbook, right? So if you build a playbook for the discovery phase, you build a playbook for the demo phase, you will make sure to actually capture the data, capture all the answers directly into your CRM, so you can actually utilize it later on in the sales process.
I'm managing a small sales department for a SaaS company right now who put $60,000 MRR into in closed one in the past 4 months. The two and a half guys, and they run the same exact playbook in the first 2 meetings every single time within HubSpot. They know exactly. It's not a scripted meeting, but they do have a framework. Okay, I begin with this. I have these 3-4 example of questions, and I have these answers before I can transition to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then they're absolutely sure that they got through everything. They have the knowledge that they need. And afterwards, when evaluating that, going through the playbook, writing in their notes, if there's something they can't answer, then they call them and say, there's something I missed, to come up with a good suggestion for a good next step or a proper solution. So I have to ask this question as well. That is one thing.
Can you reveal one of or two questions from that questionnaire that's really giving the right input to actually setting the right next step, but also maybe identifying some fear in the decision making?
Yeah, the like fear decision making. It could just be I almost always ask the question of, okay, imagine that we won't work together. What would happen? Why would that be? Nobody's asking that question because they're so afraid of getting a tough truth. But when you get that truth, then you can actually say, all right, that's what we have to work with. So now let's try to attack those upcoming problems. I always ask that question. Especially when I feel that there's some hesitance somewhere. It could also just be if they need to present it to a peer or a colleague, like, what do you imagine they would say when you present this? So that could be a few questions. In the beginning, like, we have revelation problems, but we also have like the impact of those problems. So like the questions is probably, it's usually quite industry specific, but it's also like just diving into the consequences of that problem. Okay, so if you have this problem, how would that impact the strategic goals of 2024?
Yeah, that makes sense. What about discussing pricing and budget and asking, I like to ask, the question of, do you have any budget set aside for this software or this service, or do you need to go back and get the budget, just to make sure where are we actually, in terms of making a decision on this? Is that also something that you want to enable in a discovery, or do you want to wait a bit typically?
I would hate spending a lot of time on people who like don't have a budget or aren't willing to spend. So I think of course it's important to qualify early. I think the usual band technique by asking for budget, authority, and so on, you have to be quite slick about it, not to make the buyer feel like they're being band qualified at the moment. But then again, I think it's a fair question. And another thing is that many actually tries to hide the price until later on. Where I think, like, if you give a ballpark pricing, hey, like, from what we know now, we can't be really precise, but we know it will be between $10,000 and $20,000. Does that scare you in any way? And then you'll have like some wiggle room, and then of course it can be lower, it can be more. But I always think that you should give a ballpark estimation if asked, and then make them understand that this process will take a bit longer. You will need more information. You will work on this together, not as a salesperson, as a buyer, but as a team to create a viable solution by discovering their needs and how you can come up with a solution to that.
Yeah, I think it's a very great takeaway, this, to actually co-create the solution and work together as a team instead of pushing the sales. If we just jump into the sales strategy part, because now we talked about some techniques, we talked about the sales cycle, we talked about the sales process. When we look into sales strategy, I think one of the things we already discussed earlier on is this one about hiring too early or hiring the wrong people, and the whole thing about SaaS founders moving away from sales and actually selling. Can you just elaborate a bit on those common mistakes? Because I think, for one thing, I agree, but I also think that this is quite a vital input, especially looking into 2024 and how we're gonna adapt to the sales cycle, right?
Yeah, and that is of course a bit towards the early stage companies, but I see a lot that founders are successful in selling it to maybe 5, 10, 20 customers. What they miss is that they sold 5, 10, or 20 different solutions to 5, 10, 20 different markets, and all of the buyers was friends and family. But then they get to these 10, 20 customers, they pop the champagne, perceive it as a product market fit, and then it will be easy to just hire in 2 AEs and then make them sell in the same way, and that it's not going to work. You have to find a very, very special founding AE or VP who's used to building processes rather than executing them, because most salespeople are actually succeeding by executing working sales processes, and those sales processes has to be built by the founder, either by themselves or by some kind of external. Or it can be a mentor, it can be a VC, it could be someone like me, or it can be someone who's used to it that they hire in and say, okay, we know that these 3, 6, 9 months the founders have to be on board in the sales, have to spearhead it, because we have to find a reliable motion where we're selling the same thing in the same way every single time to people that we don't know.
Yeah. And also, I think the whole thing about selling as a founder, or bringing in the founder into sales and also to building the processes, is also there will come a shift in relation sales, because a lot of founders, they have a lot of relations, they can push the product, and then when you then hire people to be part of the sales organization, you kind of need to work this motion into the broader sales department, to make sure that we sell in the same way. And I think also one thing to highlight when talking about sales strategy is especially the part of utilize your CRM system. Again, taking into account sales cycles are longer, we need to be able to follow up. We need to be able to collect the right data to make sure that we have some data to inform the sales strategy and to really, look into our conversion rates. Are they increasing? Are they decreasing? What should we do about it? What are we missing? Do we need to build sales playbooks in HubSpot to make sure that the data goes into the CRM system to verify is this potential customer ready to move on in the sales cycle as well. Okay, so wrapping up here, and please just put your questions in the Q&A, because right now we're going to jump into what to expect in 2024, and then we're going to wrap up with the Q&A. So now talking about both the sales cycle increasing, talking about sales frameworks, SaaS founders still being part of selling the product. What should we expect in 2024? Is it going to be harder? What should we really, work with or work into our sales strategy in 2024? What is your take on that, Tobias?
I'm not sure it's going to be harder, but I'm not sure it's going to be easier either. So I think that we will see extremely small sales teams succeed a lot and bring way more value than way bigger sales teams. Small sales teams that is well structured, following good processes and is well coached will do extremely well. I think we will see more of those cases. I think that we will see much more validation before scaling. So people will, like founders will validate messaging, validate feature value, validate markets, and so on before pushing the button on anything. I think we will see more and more founders build brand and spearhead the sales effort, keep on selling for a long time, and help enable their salespeople to succeed. I think we're going to see more PLG. I think we're going to see more UX work towards that PLG. One thing is marketing, another thing is to make these products PLG friendly. That is a way to lower the acquisition cost, especially for the low tier customers, and then you can have some sales touch PLG process on the upper medium customers. I think people will focus more of their forces there.
Yeah, I agree, especially on the PLG part. So I think one of the really important things is to give away, more of your product, especially to, lure people in, building out your pipeline to make sure that you have like a critical amount coming in. They can interact with your product, they can interact with your feature, and then, they can become a paying customer later on. But now you're already, really interactive with them. But I think also an important part about PLG is, of course, that you are really building on your product and you're developing things on your product and you're fine-tuning your product, because PLG does not really work without actually putting a lot of time and effort into a product. And I think also another thing is to really showcase that you're doing that. So even though maybe you don't have like a freemium version of your product, still telling your customers or telling your prospects, now we launched this feature, now we fixed this bug, now we did XYZ. So, be more open in the communication around that. There is, a great benefit of being a customer with you, that you work a lot on the product, and, for them to really get this great experience. So I think also the products, especially for SaaS companies, will be really, really important in 2024, and really like utilizing the product, talking about the product whenever you have a customer in, and really showcasing that you also, putting a lot of effort into developing this product, to make sure that people also stay with you, because churn is another fact. We don't want our customers to churn in 2024 as well. So of course we want new customers to come in, but we also want to keep the ones that we already have.
I also think that one thing that like many salespeople, maybe revenue people probably say like it's the hour of AI, and that can do a lot, and we can fire all the salespeople and just do AI. I think that most salespeople are over-enabled when it comes to tools. Like they have, and it's because founders and sales leaders and so on, they think they can solve problems by just buying another tool.
Yeah.
I think you have like a limited tool stack now, where of course HubSpot will be an extremely important part, but all of the things around, like you can buy 20 tools, you can buy 30 tools, you can have a very complex HubSpot setup. I think we should do it as simple as possible, make the process as simple as possible, so it's easy to execute, it's quickly to execute, it's quickly to understand, and then have a playbook that you can onboard salespeople on, and they can execute like the day after, because we kept it simple. We don't try to make it too complex. So back to basic is also what I think we will see, maybe not in Q1 and Q2, but maybe Q3 and Q4, that people will get. And that is what will create these smaller teams that will be highly successful.
Yeah, so stop making it, also the barrier internally to, build the process too complex, but dumb it down and have small but very efficient and executive teams. How do you see like the collaboration with marketing in 2024? Because a lot of the work that we do as well, also because we both enable marketing and sales, is especially also to see, okay, how can marketing actually help, decrease the sales cycle? And we also discuss a lot about the afterlife of lost deals. So whenever a deal is maybe lost due to some bad timing or some budgeting, it's not really lost forever. So how can we enable marketing to help follow up on these leads, to build maybe some lead nurture, to make sure that they still get the product updates? How do you see this in 2024?
One thing is that salespeople have to be better at sharing information with marketing. I think we're quite bad at that actually, which makes marketing do things that then afterwards the salespeople come and say, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. But we have to be better at sharing information actually, and then of course not think as marketing as something that creates leads, but something that enables both other salespeople and also the buyers throughout the buyer journey. And that is becoming increasingly important the more stakeholders that is involved, because if you only have to convince 2 of making a decision, then it's easier to enable them than it is to enable 10. And then lost deals, of course, like it's there's a lot of gold in lost deals. So if you can nurture them from a marketing-led perspective and a few sales touches throughout the year, then you'll have a good way. And marketing people can even be some kind of ghostwriters when it comes to selling, like making sure that we deliver something valuable every quarter, every half a year, just to be kept top of mind.
Yeah, I agree. So I will give you one final question, because I cannot see anyone in the chat right now. But I have a final question in terms of actually enable this content. So you are a full-blooded salesperson. Which kind of content from a marketing perspective has helped you do a better job in sales? Like, which marketing content enable you to do your job better?
I can definitely say it's not like 15 pages pitch decks around where we're located and how many people we have and so on. But if we can break it down to very tangible problem statements, very tangible payoffs of working with us, extremely relevant customer cases, and then also implement like lower risk content. So we have an implementation plan. We know exactly how what the timeline on this are. We know exactly what to do when. We know exactly what you have to do when, and so on. Like that type of content that is really tangible and is about the buyers and not us is extremely helpful. And then one thing I try to implement in most SaaS businesses I work with is unfinished sales material. And the reason that it's unfinished and blank is that I want to enforce some co-creation. Like, you can only make this part of the sales material when the buyer actually interacts with you and are interested in co-creating the last pieces of that sales material with you.
Yeah. But I think I really like the part about this lower the risk content. I think that's a very great takeaway, especially for 2024, but also thinking about the longer sales cycles. So how can we help, decrease that, but also how can we maybe talk very direct into this barrier of buying, because we already, are confronting all the questions up front. This is how we lower risk, and, be very honest about, this is the implementation plan. It will take 2 months to be up and running. The onboarding plan looks like this, and, give it all away so they know what would it look like, and they know what to expect, and they know what is the ROI of the money they're going to put in.
Yeah, that's going to be extremely important. And I think the one who succeeds with that is also the one who's going to win in 2024.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So it's time to wrap up. Thank you so much, Tobias, for joining us all the way from Sri Lanka. It's been
You're well welcome
to getting all your very great input on what are the common sales pitfalls, how to avoid them, and especially also what we can expect in 2024. I think what we will do is that we will share those 17 questions you talked about earlier on today. So keep an eye out for your inboxes, because we're going to send you an email with the recording, with the slides, but also with Tobias' 17 questions to ask throughout the sales process as well. Thank you so much for joining, everyone, and hopefully we will see you in our HubSpot user group next year.